Welcome, everyone, both DFCI, data science, internal and external audience, both the members from data science and within the DFCI and beyond the institute. I am Selvi Guharaj, a computational biologist in the Department of Data Science. And one of my primary tasks is to centralize and manage data sets of interest to our researchers for their work. And this presentation, unlike if you've been attending the biostatistics and computational collaborative training sessions, it's going to be unlike that. It's more of an information session, about the resources that we have under our DFCI computing systems, and the access and our sharing policies and principles that we follow and adhere to the NIH agency. And it's more targeted toward members who frequently use our cluster, our servers, and do the computation there. They collaborate, exchanging their files or their data. The presentation has been developed in a manner it's going to be helpful not just for members who already know about the cluster or the servers or what the access procedure or the request download procedure is, but also for the new staff members who come in, who want to know just to get a high-level view of what's going on with regard to the centralized data. This presentation would be helpful for them as well. And for members who are outside of the department, I think it'll be more helpful for them, because the questions that we get mostly are from the external department members. So at any point, if you want to stop me, or if I'm rushing through, or you have questions that you want me to go in detail about a particular policy, or about a data set, or the sharing, or about our procedures, just stop me there and we can go. And the entire presentation, it wouldn't take more than an hour and a half or more. We'll be able to finish it within in less than 2 hours. So today, there are 4 major topics that we'll be discussing, or I'll be discussing on. One is the centralized data, just the overview of what centralized mean with regard to our department. But we'll be delving deeper when we go into the data catalog, as I walk you through the data catalog and show you the different metadata records and things like that. And then data access, of course, the sharing, again, with regard to centralized data, and then the catalog. So these are the 4 major topics that we'll be touching upon today. And starting with the centralized data, under centralized data, we'll be discussing about our estate, what the estate holds, the assets that we have, and the tools that are centralized. And the next one, under centralized access, you will get to see the different groups of members who have access to different particular type of data sets, or which data sets and who doesn't have access and what the reasons are, the prerequisites in order to access these data sets on the servers or the cluster, the forms that you need to submit, and the entire procedure. And just a overview of how the access request or a download request or a renewal protocol moves through, right from the requester to the DAC, and then finally to get your data sets, access to the data sets. And then with it, the data access, I just put a separate topic because this is one of the most important topic. Of course, open access, there's no particular, there are no restrictions, so we don't have a lot of things to talk about. But with controlled access, I would like to go to discuss about the collaborations, the DAR and the MTA. DAR is the data access request, and MTA, material transfer agreement, and then the renewals and closeouts. these are the central controlled access is the one that we have a lot of challenges and we face a lot of issues with them. And finally, like the data sharing itself, it's mostly about the controlled access data. Then GSR, which is the genomic summary results, which is the downstream analyses outputs, that whether it can be posted or whether it can be shared. And then just the general copying, mounting, and linking the controlled access data with the other servers or even sharing it with your colleagues. So and the next one is the final is the data catalog, is where I'll take you spelunking into the website and we can go over like what we have. That is pretty comprehensive. So, and I will also show you a short demo, like how to take the information that is on the data catalog and how you can go into our cluster and servers and ask questions, whether it's to the systems team or to the management, like the centralized management team and things like that. So these are the 4 major topics that we are going to be seeing today. And centralized data. So centralized data, before I go into each one of the topics, I would like to make certain clarifications on the terminologies, the wordings that I have used throughout in the presentation and what it means. We don't want to convey a different meaning to the audience of even to someone who watches the presentation later. The first one is under departmental. Right from the title of the topic itself, it's centralized data access and sharing. And the centralized, it applies only to the data sets that have been listed in the data catalog. And we have the director of scientific computing with me here in the audience. And he knows like it's what this centralized mean does not apply to the entire department. There are several groups within our department who have their own file shares, clusters, or file shares and computational territory where they host centralize their lab data and things like that. So what I am talking about, the definition here, centralized, just applies only to the data sets that I manage and centralize, and then those that are listed in the catalog. And at the institutional level, you will constantly see the words internal and external. And this internal and external, there is no bifurcation within the institute of the data science being separate from the rest of the institute. No, this is just for the sole purpose of distinguishing the access privileges, who's internal, who's external to data science department. And that is just for the access privileges. And the meaning doesn't have any other, the words do not hold any other meanings to it. And at the federal level, like I've included throughout the presentation, I have sprinkled some codes, some communications and emails and references that come from NIH or mainly from the DAC. And since most of our controlled access data comes from the NIH institutes and centers, I have pulled all these communications that they have either sent to us or that has been posted on their website. So although like we talk about different, we don't have just NIH data on our systems. We have like data from 30 plus data providers. So the principles of data sharing and access, even though like, and security, of course, are quite common among all the data providers, but there are some variation between data providers, whether it's St. Jude or UK Biobank, or you take, what is that? I'm sorry, NIH, DBGAP, yeah. H10, things like that. Like even though the access and sharing principles are common, there might be some variation there that I will point out as I go through, as I go down the slides. And that is the clarification, some of the clarifications I would like to make. And the centralized data management, is it a one-man army here? No, it's like we have quite a few different departments and personnel helping us like to manage, centralize, maintain the security, and follow-ups, or like being the face to external clients. There are a series of people who are behind this. Number one is our DFCI program manager, and she provides weekly updates on employee contact lists, the new hires, the terminations that happen. Like I get the report, like the lists, like every week. So this is a key component to our centralized data management management, because like the entire data access depends on this particular list. Who are the current and active list of employees under our department? So based on this list and their contact details, that's how we make communications with the users, both internal and external to our department. And next is the director of scientific computing, and he helps like with allocating computational resources and maintaining data security and tons of other stuff, like both like the program manager as well as the director, like religiously, like, and prompt responses, like whether it's weekend or it's after hours, we just get immediate responses from them. And this helps like to move the requests or any what is that, any communications like from the users or from external clients. If things get like promptly responded and acted upon, we just move on, and then we go on to the next action item, because the number one priority for all of us here is to make the data available to our users immediately. Like once a request is there, like if it is available on the cluster or the systems, we just want to make it available to them as soon as possible. So that prompt responses from all the people here really helps us. And then the grants and contracts, and they have to, of course, yeah, they must review and approve all the controlled access data access requests on behalf of the institute. So they, both the director and the assistant director are a great help to me. And then the data and computing committee. And this is one of the committees that we formed like 5 years back. And it includes the senior research scientists, a couple of faculty, and the director of scientific computing, and the chair, the department chair, and several others. And what we do is like we hold quarterly meetings, and they provide feedback, suggestions. We go over and discuss a lot of things that relate to centralized data management. That is a very important component again here in having the centralized managing and running the centralized data on the clusters and servers. And then, of course, the most important are the members, both internal and external. They submit a myriad of requests and questions, and I learn a lot from the external members, like their requests, their questions, the faculty, the collaborations, a lot of it. And finally, the computational biologist, Selvi Guharaj, myself, and I help with filing and managing these DARs and MTAs, and then with the help of all the above mentioned team, the groups, I centralize and manage data. So thank you, everyone. And now, like to the main topic, let's just start with what the definition of centralized mean, like within our department. As I mentioned above, like before, like it doesn't encompass like the entire department's data. It's just the data. The general definition, of course, the generic definition would be like centralized data location under our computing systems. And for anyone watching, like whether internal or external, if you just want to get a feel of like what our computational infrastructure and research computing services that are available, you can visit the DFCI systems website here. The link is, I've linked it here, and the slides will be made available once the presentation is over, so you can explore the website. And it's a pretty comprehensive website put forth by like the systems team. And of course, all the data can be accessible from all different available Unix servers and the computing cluster. If a particular server that you're working on or your you're doing your computing, if that doesn't have a particular data set, please let us know, and then the director and his team would help us mount the data set over there. But the most the definite definition that I want to give to the centralized data for data science is that the DARs and MTAs that are filed and managed by SG and then downloaded and maintained, and those that are listed in the data catalog. So these are the three things that define centralized in this presentation, and all the access and sharing will concentrate mostly on these three points. So I don't want to give a sense that I'm talking on behalf of the entire department. No, it's just for the data sets that are in the data catalog, and most of these are available to all the users, at least the open access to the entire department, except for the controlled access. And with the definition, let's go to what is centralized. We talk about we centralize data, but what is actually centralized here? One is the open access data, the controlled access, which is restricted only to the DAC approved members, and it has to be approved by the corresponding PI of the data access requester. And then the lab specific, we have multiple lab specific controlled access data. Each group or each individual research scientist or staff member, they apply for data access, and then it gets downloaded into their file share. So again, that is restricted. Again, it has to be approved by the DAC, and only the DAC approved members or users will get access to that. And we have tons of reference genome assemblies from GenCode, Ensemble, NCBI, UCSC, several more, and the T2T assemblies and annotation databases, gene and reference sequences and things like that, and bioinformatics analysis tools and algorithms. Now, coming to the estate, what does the estate entail? What does it hold? Do we download everything that is out there and have it on a server mirror like a mirror? No, we don't. It's only data sets that are of interest to the data science research community. We get a request, we download that particular data set onto our servers. But some data sets I do download because I know most of the researchers, they would need the bioinformatic databases or the genomic databases, just at least the reference sequence assemblies or the variation databases. So that I download voluntarily. But the rest of it it comes from the majority of the data resources or the data estate are from the requests that we get from the users. And we have the most of the programs and projects are from the federally funded centers and institutes. And we have both domestic and international data sets available. With naturally, it opens up to a diverse and wide variety of assets downloaded from multiple repositories, portals, cloud resources. As you can see, NCBI, Anvil, Terra, AWS, and several other archiving and distributing repositories. And also data that is uniformly processed data, usually available on the R bioconductor software packages. So we also download that data because we get requests from statisticians or computational biologists asking for data from BioC packages. So those data are also downloaded. And it includes, and most importantly, all this includes it'll naturally include the popular data sets like TCGA, Target. I've listed just a few. And the assets, going a little deeper, I'm going from out into inside, what the assets are. So what type of assets are centralized? As I said, genomic, several transcriptomic, that is the huge part of our estate, epigenomic, whole genome bisulfite sequencing, and others from ENCODE, Roadmap, and other TCGA, and proteomic and microarray. We do have variation databases and reference sequences. All this I'm just skimming through. When we get into the data catalog, I can show you in detail about each data set and what the metadata we have and the types and the formats, the data categories that we have. And in all of these, we have both the raw and the process, wherever it's available. And if we have the access to the raw data, we do have that as well.
Selvi, can you hear me?
And here I want to say, like, with the tools, the systems team downloads like a plethora. Like if you log into the servers in the cluster, you will see like tons of tools that are already installed, and we have environmental modules, the module files that are there, so you can easily load and unload those modules for your analysis. So the tools that I'm talking about is downloaded and by me, and it's in a separate directory. And whenever a request comes to systems, if they need that particular tool, we build a module for them, and then we move it to the centralized location. So I just wanted to give you a rough idea of what tools that we have. And of course, if you need a module file, if you don't find a module for the particular tool, you can contact systems. I've given the link there. And we have aligned to unaligned data conversion, pre-processing and quality control tools, adapter trimming, mappers, aligners, expression quantification, variant callers, analysis workflows and pipelines, summary results, like anything, like if you want to take the raw data and then do any genomic summary results, downstream analysis output, there are tons of other tools that help you with that, and with the subsequent reported generation based on the format that you need, data compression tools, and other tools like just for in general to carry out an efficient analysis or to maintain effective data management processes.
So before you continue, Rafa has a question.
Yeah, sure.
Rafa, you should be able to unmute.
Oh, not genomics. If you mean like clinical data, not genomics, other than not genomics, I'm thinking about any clinical trials data, because those don't come really under genomic, like anything. No, it's all genomic. And as I said, the tools, the genomic, transcriptomic, proteomic, like things that pertain to that you use the genomic or the transcriptomic data. And yeah, clinical trials data, like most of the clinical trials data, and your group might have it in a separate thing. But again, some of the PIs that I work with, they also use Vivli. I think you must have heard about it. And Vivli is the platform. It's like an archiving and a distributing repository. And pretty much most of the clinical trials data, that's where I filed the DARs for one of our scientists, and her lab and the members, they access, Haynes, we don't have that data on our servers. So it's, but no, the clinical trials data, that the request that's come to me, I don't know, like the statistic department is your group has a separate repo for holding clinical trials, but the DAR requests that come to me, I file it like most of the clinical trials data, like most of the researchers, they have uploaded it to Vivli, and that's where I manage and but you can download data from Vivli. Everything, it's like a research analysis platform, and everything has to be analyzed there. But all you can do is bring down the results summary files down to your server. You can't egress like any other raw data or the already deposited data there, the individual level data. So the forms, like the centralized forms, what forms do you need to, like the users need to submit for access requests? Like if a particular user needs access to a particular website, do we just email and then we provide the access? No, initially it was like that, but like with proper improvisation and like feedback from others as well. Like we have the set of forms, right from like if you want to submit an access request, there are forms separately for open access, controlled access. Then for data download, for open access, there is a separate form for open access. I will be going into every single form and their fields, like what are the questions that need to be answered by the requester. I will be going in detail for each of the forms. And then for project renewals and closeouts, this applies only to controlled access data projects where you have to do an annual renewal, or if you're closing out, you have to submit a form. And then like data needs and usage, like any user, if you're not finding, like if you're not accessing or downloading, but you just want to make us aware of like your data needs or usage, I have put a thorough survey like with tons of questions under that. You can also let us know, and then based on the IT director's approval, we will get it. We have to work with the disk allocation, memory resources, other computational resources to see like whether we can bring down, if it is a huge data set, if we can bring it down to our servers. So now, like, what is the definition for internal? We defined it as centralized and others. What is the actual definition of internal and external that we are talking about in this presentation? So again, there is no bifurcation in the department, in the institute. It's just internal for access privileges. Internal is everybody employed through the DFCI. External is all the others, like from other departments at DFCI, Harvard affiliated schools, HSPH, HMS, you name it, the other FAS and GSAS and others. And external organizations, if you're coming from other organizations to collaborate with us, institutions and high schools. And here you officially belong, here you do not. You might wonder why this officially belong. A couple of years back, one of a requester, he said like, I do officially belong to the DFCI, to data science department. I'm not employed. I come from another department from DFCI, but I am officially, I officially belong to the department because I am in a joint collaboration with another faculty member. So like you can be like, this is another challenge I will be talking about in detail. So to make that clear, I just wanted to make sure like you should be employed, which becomes you naturally become officially, you officially belong. But on the other end, if you're not employed through data science, then you do not officially belong to data science, even though you're holding a joint collaboration, you're collaborating jointly with a faculty member here, or if a member from here is collaborating with a member outside of the data. Why centralized data? So often, like when we hold all the quarterly data and computing meetings, we have a couple of members from other external departments, and also in other meetings, like people ask, like, why do you centralize so much data? You say that you have petabytes of data, but why do you centralize all these? Why can't you just get a membership on a cloud service provider and just or archive the data on AWS Galaxy and things like that, instead of holding like building such a huge infrastructure with a lot of money, time, and resources? I just wanted to like, of course, all those cloud service providers have their own advantages and a lot of advantages, in fact. But the thing that that I have seen, like in the past few years, working with these centralized data sets and the requests and the computational infrastructure, is that one is that all these data sets, they are readily accessible. You don't have to do a lot of single sign-ons, SSOs on like different portals. And such. You just log into the cluster, you just SSH into the server, and there you have everything there. So it's readily accessible. Naturally, it's easy to use as well. And it's hierarchically organized. The organization, like, we do not just download what is up there and just dump it into some directory, just create a new directory and just dump all the data there. What we do is we neatly organize raw data separately, then the quants, like all the quantification results, coverage, variance separately, any supplementary materials that are provided by the study article or like by the portal. So everything is like organized. I will show you, like when I go into the demo into the cluster and the servers, I will show you like how each some of the data sets are organized. And of course, it's easy to use. And with the rich metadata, like when you go into the data catalog, you will see like I have, of course, sorry, we have extracted like everything, like whatever that is there on the, either on the study article or on the data portals, every single study, whatever we could find, we have extracted all these fields, metadata fields about that particular data set and made it available in the metadata dataset record that you will see in the catalog. And so and most of them are available in downstream analysis ready formats. And just today morning, I was talking to the chair, like the data that comes from the data provider may not be in a conducive format. So most of the requests that I get is like, could you please give me in a different format? Can you change it into a different format from H5, H5AD to TSV? And if it is in a sparse matrix, students want it like in a different format. So like we have it in different formats, but of course, like systems team has a secure computing environment, and all data security and everything, all protocols are maintained thoroughly. And with all these, you can have a conducive environment for your genomic data analyses. And of course, the usage of the in-house data sets goes up, like when we have all these features are built in, and it facilitates data integration. And most importantly, if you see like the collaboration across the different research groups, like within the PIs, between PIs and the postdocs, sharing it with another postdoc with another lab group, or with another member PIs group. It really helps in sharing the data. And if they are, of course, with controlled access, you should be an approved user, but it just helps in exchanging the output results. Now, coming to the second part of the presentation, the centralized data access, it is bifurcated into two different sections. Data access is like open access data sets, and then the controlled access data sets. You might wonder like why we have like certain procedures for open access. Why can't you keep it all open, and everybody, whoever logs in or whoever is a member or has access to the servers and cluster, why can't they just log in and access the open access data sets? The reason is that like as you see under the definition, I will point out some of the key challenges here. Open access, the generic definition, you know that is publicly available. There is no sensitive information to know. You can trace back. All the data is de-identified, and it's free to use. There is no formal application you need to file to get access to download or to use the data. There is no access procedure. But a few require, like some of the, like at least for 10x genomics, when I try to download certain data sets, every time it asks me to enter my institutional email, my just some brief, like a couple of details of my position and the name and things like that. Only then it allows me to go into the download page. So there are a few portals that require user registration, but it's very short. You don't have to provide any documents or something like that. And again, no binding contractual agreement, unlike the controlled access, no tedious paperwork, so it's easier. And the downloads are immediate. Like as long as like I have the approval for if it's heavy downloads, as long as I have the disk space allocated and the approval from the IT director, I just immediately pump down the download scripts. So this is the thing. And as you see, the access for open access, it's available to everybody, like internal as well as external. But one thing external members need to note is that they have to have storage and compute accounts that you can contact systems team for more information. And other than that, we haven't put any restrictions on open access data at all. And as we speak, the director is also in the process of creating groups for access for external members and those who are internal. We already have user groups, but for external members, he's in the process of doing that. So you can contact systems about computer storage and usage, the fee and things like that. So it's open to everybody, like students, rotational or not, interns, and within the DFCI and from other departments. And what are prerequisites? Again, like open access, there are not like any major prerequisites, but just like I said before, some of these open access, like it's mostly the open access, which are really huge, be it the IGSR, like the variation data sets, like the 1,000 Genomes Project, the Simon's Diversity Project, the Human Diversity Project, SDGP, and a lot of others, like not just that, even the genome assemblies itself, they take up quite a lot of space. So in that case, what we have done is we have restrictions on accessing them, because we need to have a record of who's accessing those data sets. Because if they are not accessing, then like I can easily delete the directories and bring in new data. This opens up the disk space for new data, so we don't put a lot of pressure on the systems team to procure more what software or hardware for disk space. So the access is to both internal and external, and submission of this in-house open access DAR form is strongly recommended. I know we had a chat with some of the faculty about this, whether like they need users have to submit this or not. But the reason why I'm suggesting it to, why I'm recommending like to submit this form is that, again, like to not only about the who's accessing it, it's also to receive updates. For example, like with the NCBI RefSeq and all these reference and annotation databases, they are huge, and the updates usually come every 6 to 8 weeks. There is a new set of files being released by the ENCODE, Ensemble, GenCode, and NCBI or UCSC. So what happens is, I can't have the old files, version files, plus the new version files. I can't bring in because there's not enough disk space on our servers. So what I have to naturally do is I try to move the most important files into a directory called like maybe old files, just the most recent, just the version just before the most recent version. And then I bring in the new data. So if I know who is accessing a particular open access data set, then I usually email them. We tried emailing the entire, like if I put an email saying this particular directory path is going to change or these files are not going to be available, I don't think many read the email. So if I know, I can target my email just to those individuals who are using that particular data directory, and then tell and wait until they respond to me. Okay, could you please acknowledge till that it's okay for me to move it to somewhere else. And one of the postdoc, he's whenever I know that he's using a lot of open access genome resources, and he responds back immediately saying, like, if his jobs are running, like he says, my pipeline has set this particular path, so please do not change, could you please? So that way it really helps me to not do any changes there, and then know that at least a set of people are using that. But all these updates will be posted on the news page of the data catalog also. But if you're not someone who's a frequent visitor of that data catalog webpage, then again, there is a chance that you might miss all these updates. So that's why I make it a point, if there is a record that I have that both the director and I are aware about, then even if a request comes to him, then he knows like, okay, we can delete or do any changes to the file paths or to the files. We have to preserve them because someone is using it. And of course, like to access the data sets, one of the prerequisites is like you need to have a server cluster user account. And internal members, I think it's part of onboarding. You get in your welcome packet about all information about the your cluster account, your system's user account, Unix account. I think, Jimmy, I don't know, like you can talk to business office. But then, so you,
Just one thing that
Yeah.
is either or. Don't need to have a cluster account and.
yeah. That's why I put the slash.
Servers.
Okay. Okay, yeah, one system, it's a systems account. Okay, yeah, systems account. I put the slash there because some people wonder, like, if I have access to cluster, how do I access the Unix servers? So if you can access both, yeah, with the same one account. It's a clarification from the IT director. And external members, like, please contact the systems team, and the link is there. You can email them directly from there on the storage options and costs and things like that. Now to the access request forms. So to request access to the in-house centralized open access datasets, this form is strongly recommended. And for download request, again, there is a separate open access DDR. We call it the DDR and DAR form, the data access request, and the procedure. So for open access, what is the procedure in making a request and what is the flow of right from the time the requester makes a request to the time like he or she gets the is able to go get into the directory and access the files. So the requester, this is the open access data access request, open to both internal and external members. So this is just a rough workflow of like what the procedure is. So the requester, you initiate the request by submitting the in-house open access DAR form. And this is a form, this is available to all the DFCI data science members. And it's also on a shared drive, which should be accessible by external members. If you are not able to, let me know. I can individually add your name to that. So I put in a brief description of like a listing of like what you need, like before you start submitting the forms. And even before you request the form, I would advise to go into the data catalog website and just to see what the current list of data sets are there. Because, or you can also email me, of course, but you'll get a feel like if the data sets are already there, you don't have to spend time in submitting this form. And also like any updates will be made on the news page. So let me show you like just a brief about the contact details about the requester. And this is the main part. Anything like any pertinent information about the data set, I would like you to include here as much as possible. I haven't made anything mandatory. Like you can just fill it. If you don't want to fill that particular field, that's fine. As long as the downloader is able to understand which data set you're specifying, that's fine with me. And the accession numbers. If you give me the accession numbers, that's fine because it's individually linked to each data set. So you can give me that and the category, the data type, just the brief information about like what data sets you're requesting.
There's a question online.
Uh-huh.
Are there sample data sets to explore if we want to from home?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, they can. Some of the data sets are open, but I don't know for external. Is it an external member like a?
Yes.
Oh, they need to have access. Yeah. But there are data sets that are open that can be if you have an account and if you can access, but internal members, it should be fine, but yeah. And this one is the open access for data download request. Again, the requestee or the requester, you start requesting the particular data download request. Again, it's a similar form, but this asks for a little more details because this is when I mean data download request, you are requesting download of new data sets, not currently existing data sets, but new data sets, right? So like we need to know like more about like what kind of data sets you're here I need the PI information. The reason is that we just don't want to accept every single request coming from a grad student or an undergrad or an intern, download it because it's all about the disk space. That's the main concern. So we need your PI's thing, and then you can specify like whether it's open access, and then provide all the information like the website URL where we can find it. Again, like the dataset repository URL might be different from data access. What do you mean? The data access provider or the committee, or I will explain later. Yeah, so that might be different. So you have to provide both the URLs and any accession numbers. If there are publication references, that would really help because most of the time students come to me and say they just like hear it from the PI and just say, okay, this is the accession number, can you download it? But then like after downloading and providing the files, they come back again and say like, okay, oh, there are a ton of supplementary data on the paper. Could you please download it for me? And then they have to wait. So we don't want that lag. So if you give me the publication reference, in one shot, we can download everything and have it centralized, and the description and any additional lab members that you want to be added to this particular data set for access, you can include it here. Since it's open access, we can, and again, this part is important because if your data set is more than like maybe 10 GB, 20 GB, then it has to go to your lab file share. if your lab is the only one going to use this particular data set, then I think systems would prefer it going into your lab share account rather than having it centralized and taking up the centralized space. Yeah. And yeah, of course, the data set size. So something like just these key information will help us. Yeah, and open access DDR. Yeah. So that's a procedure. And now coming to the main, I didn't go into the details of like what happens to after the requester submits naturally once it gets downloaded, it'll be downloaded by us, and then the if it has to be protected or if that particular open access needs to be restricted, that particular directory, then I send forward the name to the director and he sets it in the user group. So coming to controlled access, again, we start with the definition of controlled accesses. So so far, there is no definitive definition for this controlled access, because different DARA organizations, of course, you have a generic description of a definition of what controlled access is. But each organization might have different clauses included in their agreement to define what controlled access here mean. But the generic definition, as you all know, is like it's a protected and restricted access, highly sensitive information, de-identified data, and you can trace back to the study participants and things like that. And more, and all the federally funded programs and project data is free. There is no access fee or other fee, but you have other fee, like I will, some charge, like a few of them charge, some data providers, they charge annual access fee, for example, like UK Biobank. And even if you want to, some others, yeah, mostly internationals, repositories, they have a charge fee. And the cloud provider data egress fee, as long as you're not downloading it down to your servers or to your machines or to your systems, then there is no egress fee. You can do all your analysis on the research platform, because nowadays, like most of these federally funded programs, they are moving all their data sets to these cloud service providers, because they have all the analysis tools there, and they can manage the access privileges, because you directly link your ERA Commons what is that, credentials to the data provider portals. Does any of you here have ERA Common? Okay, yeah. So you must know, so once you get into Anvil or DNA Nexus and UK Biobank, they are all like linked to your, not UK Biobank, that's European. So all the domestic ones, they directly link your ERA account to the data portals. All you have to do is to give an attestation saying, I agree, and then immediately all the data sets that you have, controlled access data sets that you have access to, will immediately pop up on your screen. And you can just access those, do your analysis using those files. And all you have to bring down from the portal or the research analysis platform is your genomic summary results, the output files. So the cloud provider data egress fee, in our case, we had to pay a hefty amount for some of the data sets because we brought in the data down to our servers. But if it's not the case, then this fee doesn't apply to you. And of course, analysis fee. So if you're not doing the data egress, you have to definitely pay the fee for using their platform, the analysis platform, Vivli, and as I said, Anvil and Terra, all the dbGaP has moved to Anvil and Terra. So those Globus and things like that, like all these providers, and AWS, of course, GCP, all the common names, huge names, they charge the analysis fee, DNA Nexus. And there is a lengthy application for the DAR. Unlike the open access here, there is a very lengthy access and a pretty intricate procedure as well. And a contractual agreement, which involves your DAR, MTAs, and then it has to be executed into a final DUA, data use agreement or data access agreement, which is signed by both parties. In some cases, it's just a data provider, whoever the manager, the data manager on the other end is, and the data, the PI from here signs the MTA or the agreement. But in many cases, they will ask every single collaborator like whether it's a PI or a postdoc or a grad student, and sometimes even the IT director for St. Jude's, even he had to make a formal signature saying that the security and the data security is maintained and we have a secure computing environment. So there are like, it depends on each provider, but whatever I put in here, in general, it's about NIH DARs and some cases IRBs. IRB approval letter should be uploaded along with the access application. And the review and approval process, it goes, once you submit, it goes to the data access committee. And from the data access committee, it goes to the data provider. The data access committee will review your application, your rules, like the research use statement, why you're using the data set, why you want the data set, and how you're going to use the data set, and all things. If even a single detail is missing, then we get the rejection and we have to submit it back. So we have to be very thorough in what we submit in our research use statement. And once the access committee approves, now they send your names to the data provider. Data provider is not someone, is someone who archives and distributes the data. So they are pretty much a repository. Like NIH, you get all the DACs are the NCIs, NHGRI, and all those. And the data provider is dbGaP, which is solely for holding the data that has been approved by the NIH federal agency. And this is the case with even with the other international as well. Most of the European data sets, it goes to EGA. So you have a data access committee that approves your request from the on behalf of the research group. And then they forward everything to EGA. And then again, we have to fight with EGA for access and things like that. Same with UK Biobank, then it goes to a DNA Nexus. So just some examples I'm pointing out. Elaborate paperwork, very tedious, and it is time consuming. It takes at least 2 to 4 weeks for the review and the approval alone. And of course, plus the dataset download time, dealing with the download clients of each single data provider, and fixing the issues, talking back. Even yesterday, like I was emailing the IT director after 6 weeks, no, not 6 weeks, 4 weeks, we got the approval only yesterday from EGA, and we were able to download it. So it takes like how you might get it approved quickly with the DAC, but then there is a lag when you go to the data access provider. And this is a very important slide. I just want to pause here. And this is for controlled access. And as you see, the access is only to the faculty, research staff, employed, and officially those who belong to the department. I have removed the interns, student interns, college interns, rotational students, and post-baccalaureate students, anybody coming in without any onboarding tasks and compliance tasks, they do not belong here. And who doesn't have access? Again, not those who are not part of DFCI data science, other data science, DFCI departments, Harvard schools, external institutions, high schools, and also students in teaching classes. You might ask, like, even though NIH states that anybody who is a direct report to an approved user, automatically they become an approved user, which I'll talk about later. But teaching classes, no, you are not part of, even though like you're taking the class with the faculty, you are not part of our department. And then interns, rotational students, ex-employees, postdocs, and students. And the only scenario where ex-employees or postdocs or students get access is if they are working on an ongoing project, like active projects. Like we had a couple for students who were working, and so even their data will be held. For example, some postdocs, they move into a faculty position in a different institution, and their data is held, even though as long as their application is valid, their lab data will be held, because data access providers, they allow that. If you have a pending scientific publication or a presentation, or if you're working on if your research is ongoing, then you don't have to delete it immediately. But if it is not, then in that case, you have to delete it. But otherwise, example, postdocs and students, if they are still working with the PI, then I think they have a certain period of time to access the clusters, and it vanishes off. It gets disconnected once their cluster usage is disconnected. or they lose access to the clusters. And what are the prerequisites? Again, like it's the access is only to the DAC approved and the PI has to approve. Like sometimes the project is submitted on behalf of the PI, and the PI, usually all the PIs will give me a list of names to whom I should grant access to, like to the controlled access data set that we have been approved. So only those members, not the entire PI's lab. And mandatory submissions. What are the mandatory submissions in controlled access data that you want to access the data that is housed under our systems? The DAR, the controlled access DAR, and a copy of your DUA. This, I'm just giving you the general listing, the general submissions, but later I'll talk about like what the exceptions are. The DUA that has been approved by the DAC, you have to submit it to me. And then that submitted copy of the active DUA or the DAA or the MTA should list the requesting data sets. You can't list an RNA-seq approved data set and request access for a whole genome sequencing access. So you should have that particular data set listed in that DUA. And that listed copy or the listed DUA should either list you, the data access requester, or one of the DFCI faculty members as PI on that project. That is a mandatory thing. And as usual, you need access to the clusters. And this is only for internal. So if you don't have your systems account, then please contact the systems. And thing is, like, we strictly adhere and comply with all the rules and policies of the data provider or the data access committee. And as you know, like throughout this presentation, whatever policies and rules that you see, like except for those like on the systems, like the access and things, all about the controlled access, we just blindly follow the federal policies. The only thing that we don't do is like, it's not available to external collaborators. Maybe in other institutions or companies and firms, like all internal and external can, as long as they are in the DAR, they can access, they have access to the data. But pretty much like that's the only exception. But otherwise, like we just follow the federal policy on data sharing and access. And the request form, like what is the request form that you have to submit to access the in-house controlled access data sets? Again, I want to stress, when I say in-house or centralized controlled access, it does not mean it is open to everyone. In-house controlled access data sets are data sets where we have approved users. So if you are an approved user, or if you're part of or if you're a direct report to a PI who is an approved user, then you will have access to that. That's why we have put in-house or centralized. It does not mean that controlled access is open like the open access data sets. Just want to clarify here. So in-house controlled access DAR is mandatory. Let me show that quickly. Again, this whatever prerequisites, I've listed it here. You can access. And this is about you, the data access requester, the PI information, and every single information. This is basically like the prerequisites requisites I listed there, like all your DUA and whether you have any pending mandatory annual forms that you haven't submitted. Have you been like very thorough in submitting and keeping up with all these annual renewals and closeouts? And will you attest to submitting the mandatory report when it comes in a year? Things like that. You have to just answer some questions. And then about the data set itself, which project data set that you need, and what kind of the data category, the type, because with TCGA alone, we have tons of categories and data types, the protocol that you want, the formats, and if there is a particular version that you're interested in. In some GTEX, you might be interested in V7. Oh, I don't want V9, I want V8. You just specify if the version is there, and things like that. And then to the download request, again, there is a download form, which is it's mandatory. Unlike the, what is that, the open access request form, the DDR for this is mandatory. And again, the same listing of everything. And I wanted to point out, like usually when you send a request, usually we act upon it within a day or two. Like we quickly process, we follow up with you if there are any clarifications or if we need any additional information or documentation. We are pretty both from the systems team as well as from the data management, we quickly follow up, and your email or your requests are immediately acted upon. If it is not the case, and if it has not been answered, please email us back and let us know that it has not been answered. And here the data access request, and the same we ask for your ERA comments when you're requesting a data access for controlled access data, your PI information, and then this is a download for controlled access. So we need every single information, and every little detail helps us in finding, or at least finding out what data set that you need, and if we are downloading the correct data set. Because this controlled access download request, you're requesting data that is not already on our servers. So we have to place a formal data access request to the data access committee. So we need to fill out there's a lot of paperwork, as I said before, like all the URLs, the accession numbers, and any publication references. And if it requires any IRB approval, you have to submit the approval letter to me. And will you be merging any data sets with any other data sets outside of dbGaP? Is it under a different DAA? Or if there are any prior agreements that are already there that is related to this DUA, and things like that. These are all questions that are asked in the formal data access request when you upload it to the committee. So all these questions are very important, whether you'll be using cloud computing, or what is your infrastructure within your institution, and the submission of mandatory reports. And the main thing is about your research study, your title, and the research use statement, how you're going to use it, and what it is to be used for. And another main clause that I usually include in the DAR for new controlled access data set is that many times we have been rejected, our requests have been rejected because we do not state whether we are going to upload or share any of the controlled access data on any web-based portal or platforms or tools and things like that. So I always add that disclaimer statement saying we do not plan to upload or share any of the downloaded raw data that has been downloaded from the NIH dbGaP repositories or other controlled access organizations. None of them will go on any portal or any tool. Like if you're creating an R package, or if you're going to upload a fraction or subset of the controlled access data, no, it's a strict no. So I usually add that statement there, and a non-technical summary for the layman. And the most important is the internal collaborators, all the DFCI data science members who are going to collaborate on this project. And I usually add the director and myself to the DAR, that will be one of the internal collaborators, because we are seeing the data. And then the external collaborators, you have to give the full name, institutional ID, and all the contact details. And yeah, I'll make that point in the later slides about the and information technology. They will ask about the Chief Information Security Officer. So our DSC, the Director of Scientific Computing information goes here. And please make note of that, why they are asking that, and why we say that we cannot copy or share to an external server. And signing official. Every single controlled access DAR goes through goes through the grants and contracts official, and they have to review and approve the data. So this is about this the controlled access request. And going back, that is mandatory. And then the renewal and closeout. It's the same form. I think you guys can go through the form. I think we are short of time. I have a couple of other slides to go over. And the access request procedure. And this one I need to show you. So yeah, this is an important slide. So yeah, so this is the controlled access DAR. I said like it goes to the requester, and once the requester submits all the documentation, all the needed documentation, it goes to me. Like I go over the DAR, and then I forward the requester's name once it's approved, and he adds the requester's name to the user group, so it gets he or she gets access, and then I send back the details about the file paths and all those about the control access data to the requester. So this is the general procedure for the controlled access and the DDR. And the main thing is the controlled access renewals. And what is meant by a renewal or a closeout? If you are part of any controlled access DAR or a data access request, you are mandatorily required to submit a progress report about your research. Any updates, you have to submit it every year. There is a renewal date from the time that you apply. You got the access to the data set from the controlled access provider, and 1 year from there, you have to submit an annual report. And if you plan to close out, if you don't want to renew the access, then you also have to submit a closeout report. And that is on the Google Drive. I think you guys can just take a glance at it. And these are the docs that the requester submits. And once he or she submits, I go over, review, and then submit it to the data access renewal close out the to the GC, the signing official, the grants and contracts, DFCI, and then it gets forwarded to the corresponding DAC. And from there, after the DAC approves it, it gets submitted. And once the it is submitted to the DAC, they review and approve. And if there is if it goes to a different data access provider, they send the PI's name to the data access provider to grant access. And then based on the approval or rejection from the DAC, then I follow up with any questions like additional documents are needed, or if they need any additional documents, we collect it from the requester and send it back to the DAC, and they send the approval to us. And once that is done, it goes to the data repository or the data provider, who provides access depending upon like whether it's approved or rejected. And once that is done, like if you're renewing it, nothing is done on my end. But if you're closing, we immediately delete the data sets. And then I send the names of the users to the director, and he removes them from the directory access. So this is the general procedure for the renewal access, for the renewal and closeouts. And so, okay. So the main thing, like, yeah, I'll just go through, skim through quickly. Like, it's all like you must be familiar with. Collaborations, one of the most important topic. And according to NIH, an internal and external collaborator, I've given the link for further reference, and also the definition for a collaborator at the end of the slide deck. An internal collaborator is are employees of the requester and who work at the same location. In our case, it will be all the faculty and the staff members. And external collaborator, anyone outside of it. And they have to submit if they are to be on your DAR, and if you're going to collaborate with them on a project, they have to submit a separate DAR through their organization with an identical title, use statement, and get it approved and download it to, since we are not providing access to outsiders, they have to get it approved and download it to their servers. And how do like data management distinguish between internal and external? Again, like I distinguish them like, okay, are they on the employee list? Are they like paid and sponsored by the staff? Did they do the onboarding tasks? Are they entered into the employee database? And if the email ID, but of course, like not everyone gets an email ID, DS departmental ID. So they get access to the controlled access data sets. And external, again, no non-sponsored, no compliance or onboarding tasks, no entry. And I don't know if email ID is issued for some joint collaborators or external collaborators, but no, they don't get access. And joint collaborations, like apart from those, like who are officially employed and belong, like I mentioned before, we have jointly mentored and supervised employees, like or students who collaborate with outside labs, DFCI and Harvard labs. And one of the faculty members said, like, he had a postdoc and the percentage was different. Like, he said he contributes 35% to that postdoc, and another oncologist, he does the remaining percentage. So there was a differing percentages of sponsorship, and they wanted access to that postdoc who was part of MO. And unfortunately, we couldn't give because he wasn't part of the database, or he didn't do his onboarding tasks and all the routine business team thing. So he didn't get we weren't able to provide. So this is always, this is one of the major issues that I come across. Like, we have a couple of employees, statisticians as well, who works closely with our chair, but he's collaborating with with many oncologists in MO. And while he does the statistics, well, he gets access because he reports to the chair, and he's part of the department, so he gets access. But the thing is that, like, on the oncology side, I think he does mostly the statistical work. But I think there are bioinformaticians and computational biologists on the oncology side who want to access the controlled access data and use the servers and the server and the cluster. So they are not able to do the what is that? They're not able to access it. So this is like, these are some issues that we constantly face every semester. And then the main important topic is institutional DAR. I know many users, they have questioned, we've had a debate, emails going back and forth of why we each individual PI has to need to submit a DAR. Why is it not allowed? Because each individual research, like even within a group, each individual PI's research study within different members is totally different. It's very diverse. And many are outside the realm of computational tool or method development. And if you're going to have one DAR which covers the entire department or the institution, how many PIs are you going to include in that particular DAR? Like 40 plus? Just take the data science alone, it is going to be 40 plus faculty members, including the research scientists and other staff members. And the question comes, if you're including every single PI under the internal collaborators, when each PI is eligible to submit their own DAR, which by definition and officially, by rule, they have to do that. Why are you including everybody under one blanket statement? And method development. Some data sets you can have, even if you're having a one research use statement and you include all of the data science faculty and staff, is everyone doing method development? No. Like, some do like different, just I pointed out, like, it's a diverse, right? So if your research use statement is targeted toward method development or tool development, and and another PI is research is different from method development, then this does not apply. And again, if you're doing pediatric data, some of the data sets are purely for pediatric data. And if you're coming in asking for access to a data set which is solely for pediatric data, but you're working on adult data, no, that cannot be done. And again, if there are 40 plus, are all the 40 plus faculty members included in the publications or any presentations? No, that cannot be. So because of all these reasons, we cannot have a generic research use statement or a blanket statement which covers a common, like an institution or a departmental DAR, data access request. And can you, yeah, these are the communications that was sent to me, like based on why our DAR was rejected. As you see, like the number of PIs and adult versus pediatric and method development. So these are the direct communications from the DAC, from NIH. And renewals and closeouts, I showed you the procedure, why you're doing a renewal and closeout, and how are users being reminded of these renewals and closeouts. I manage and file these DARs, so users don't have to worry about when the due date is and when they have to, they don't have to remember. I remember the dates and send them the reminders. And it is mandatory if you're renewing. If you're closing out, the final progress update is also mandatory. So there is no choice. If you're closing out, you can just say that I'm closing out, I'm not going to submit. No. And everything has to be submitted in a timely fashion by the deadline. And I send out the reminders at least 3 to 4 weeks specifying the due dates. the grants and GNC involvement in the renewal or in any DAR, and to submit it ahead of time of vacation plans, overload, please inform your PI to assign someone else to submit it on behalf of you. And if I don't get it by the due date, I send successive reminders, and everyone has to honor these time-sensitive deadlines. And one thing I need to talk about the GNC is, like, they have been tremendously helpful, very kind and accommodating. And so I really do not want to strain that relationship because of our late submissions. So now you can ask, like, why do I have, why not I submit it late or after the deadline? If you don't submit it by deadline, the accounts get suspended. See the quote from DBGAP. If your account can be submitted, and the number one reason is late annual submissions and data use violation, your access has been granted, but you don't want to provide any progress report, then that is the number one, overdue annual reports. And what does it entail? Immediate deletion of all the downloaded data sets and rejection of our future data access requests. And for some of even if we are rejected or deleting is okay for some data sets, but for some we have spent thousands of dollars. And if you're a lab member, it is under your PI's account, and we don't want to be held accountable for that. And any late submissions, again, it affects the entire department. If one user submits it late, the rest of the user, if you're going to delete it, if because of a late submission, our access is cut off, then all the others who are using GTEx or TCG, everybody's access will be gone. So we don't want it. Affects the entire department, our relationship with GNC and the organizations. We don't want any allegations. And the one thing we can do is we will immediately suspend, the IT will immediately suspend your access to all the data sets, and any future download and access requests will be rejected. And sharing open access, it's widely shared, but of course, please don't copy and take it to your home directory or lab file share. It's a lot of waste of time, the disk space and things like that. Ask the users or your colleague, whoever is requesting to share the data, to submit the forms on the page, on the data catalog page. And controlled access, again, no, strictly no, only to the approved users. And when you submit this in-house DAR, you are agreeing that you're not sharing it with anyone. And it's a serious data use violation. And what is this data use agreement? As you can see in the first statement from NIH, directly quoted from there, it is the approved data is only for the approved users. And who are the approved users? The staff members and trainees who are direct reports to the PI or the approved user. They automatically get become approved users, and they have to abide by the DUC. And then the approved data and any derivative, any raw and the following, like downstream analyses, cannot be shared with anyone else outside of the approved user territory. Only those approved users listed in our DAR can be shared, whether it's internal or external. If external collaborator has his own access, and if there is an identical rules between your DAR, then you can share the results or the reports that you generate with your external collaborator, even outside of DFCI. And then data leakage is a serious violation. And again, it's directly quoted from NIH Duke, the non-transferability, why you cannot distribute. And communication. This is a direct email sent to all the users, as you can see on the bolded statement. Strictly no sharing of controlled access data. And if anybody approaches us asking us persistent requesting of, like, please request give access to this member, that member, we have to immediately report to the grants and contracts, the GNC and the NIH. So public posting, and many would ask, like, can I post my downstream analyses outputs? Like, you have your raw data, which is mostly FASTQs, or sometimes it's the aligned BAMs and things like that. But can I, when I generate any variant calling or quantification, expression quantification outputs, or allele specific, the association studies output, anything, like, can I share it outside? Can I post it on a portal? I am developing, I have like, for example, Tide, it's part of our department. Can I post it there? No. Like, there are certain data sets, like I've linked it here. If you click, you should be able to go. And for example, GTEx, it is allowed. You can submit the genomic summary results, CPTAC, target, melanoma, and DNA met. These can be posted. You can post it publicly, but not allowed as TCGA is a very strict, no germline variation. I think some of their MAF files are available for open access, but if you're doing germline covariation and allele specific studies, you can click the link to read more about the GSR, what are the data types that come under that. And PNET, and definitely not PNET. PNET studies, most of the PNET studies are not allowed for public posting and sharing. And the challenge that we face in the data science department is like some of the faculty members would like access to the files that are on the cluster. Of course, the open access, the publicly posting that is allowed for dataset files to be shared with the teaching students, so students who are in their teaching classes. But no, we have to coordinate. We are in the process. We are reorganizing a lot of these open access GDC files into a different file share. So it's going to go, and then IT has to decide like how they are going to provide access to the servers and cluster to these students in the classes, whether they are given a account or compliance task, and a list of all the formal procedure, whether they need to go over that. Then copying, can you copy control access data to other devices or to other external servers? Like you work with different collaborators and you work with MGB and Harvard FAS. I don't know, I'm not up to date with all these external servers, but if you have any questions, please contact the systems team. They might be willing to, they'll be willing to go in detail. And all external servers, why? As I showed you in the DAR, they specifically ask about the security, the technology director and the security officer, detailing about the infrastructure that you have for each specific DAR. And most of, if you're going to carry your or copy or link the data to an external server, we do not know what the data security protocol in those institutions, or even if it's part of DFCI, we do not know what they have on their end. So that is a big no. And copying and mounting to data to unapproved devices is not acceptable. And the GDC policy, GDS, genomic data sharing policy, is given here. You can click the link down. And challenges, again, what are the main challenges? Getting requests from unapproved users. And one probable solution is, again, it's depends upon the approval of the data science chair, if he's willing to open up the access to external submissions of DAR. In that case, external members have to follow the same procedure what our internal members do. Instead, like it is going to come from the DFCI or Harvard data access requester, and one of the DFCI or Harvard faculty will be the PI on the project. So this will enable collaborations, all joint collaborations and interdepartmental, so people from the other end can come and access our servers. And that again involves systems on how the access is going to be granted, like as I say here. And whoever the PI from an external department is, they must be responsible for the submission of the mandatory report, because if that is not submitted, then your entire DAR will be, your DUA will be annulled. Like we will have to close it and cancel the agreement. And renewals and closeouts. This is a main another challenge for us, getting reports on time. Even when we would have provided the access and everything. When at the time of the getting the report, they would say like, oh, sorry, we didn't even access the directory because it wasn't suitable to us. So we just got the access, but we didn't access the data. Then how do we submit the report if there is no, we can just say like, we didn't access the data, right? And then it'll be canceled, and there are other members. So these are some things like we face. Knowledge transfer, people who are leaving the department. Sometimes I usually get the list from the program manager. But if it is at least prior, like if I could get it at least 3 weeks, but again, the notice is maybe like, is required only maybe like 2 to 3 weeks prior to your end date. And if they could put that in the offboarding checklist to make sure that all the knowledge transfer has been done, that will be helpful. And reporting compliance. So this I'll just pause for a minute. I've gone through all this, and the compliance, we are mandatory reporters. As the one, like both the director of IT, like scientific computing, and myself, if there are any compliance concerns or issues, and also members of data computing DNC committee, where we discuss these issues, they are all mandatory reporters, direct reporters. They can directly call the line and report you if any of the rules are not followed: data leakage, unauthorized requests, and late submission. And finally, like, I want to stress on why we are emphasizing on institutional emails. Again, as you can see, like some of these students do not get DFCI DS email, and all the information that I pick in distinguishing who's part of our department and who's not is from the program managers list, the weekly list, which keeps me updated like on who's a part of our department and who's not. And the problem is also, like, many lose access, then the emails become inactive and end up using personal emails, which is a big no to control access organizations. And this is the list. I just wanted to share this. The requests come from all these different servers. So for me to distinguish between an internal department member to an external department member, and it's always bugging either the program manager or the director, asking, oh, excuse me, can you please tell me if this is a internal member? Can you tell me? And then I have to like bother them every time. So it helps, like, if we can have like, okay, these are the members and they can be identified by this, because email is the only communication, right? So if it is there, then it would be helpful. But again, like we need to bring out as SOP. And is Slack GChat hallway a big no? And you know the obvious reasons. And what are the action items as part of like the central management can take? Like, we have to provide solution to to our members who are collaborating outside with external collaborators, institutions, and generate an SOP for the data sharing, prevent downloading. This is the main one. Like, please, users, if you have a request, please direct the request to systems or me, and then we will take care of it and help you with that, and minimize these emails, sending business, then systems and other PIs, flooding the PI's inbox with a lot of emails, whether he's a member, whether he's a direct reportee, things like that. So please help us help you on any data needs, plans, proprietary transfer of the transfer of proprietary research data, resources, just the common things I've put up. And even if you want us to disseminate your research outputs, whether it's on Anvil or NCBI repositories, please let us know. So we can go to the data catalog. I'll just, the data catalog, I'll just go a quick overview because it's available. So you can also access it. And you can send me messages. There are links there to contact me either through forms, through your feedback, suggestions, any issues you're facing regarding the website access or about the dataset metadata records. You can directly contact me through the forms or email me. And if you could, external members or people who don't know the link, if you could copy paste it, we can go from there. And there are direct links. And I've put some selected glossary, mostly the definitions for all these data access requests. And thanks so much for listening. And any questions, you can email me through the data catalog or through emails. And now you guys might need login to VPN to access the website. I will go to this one because I'm hosting it from my local browser. The other one, you might not see the couple of tags, the guides tab, and the talks. You might not be seeing that, but I will upload the slides once the presentation is done. So this is the welcome to the data science data catalog. So this holds like all the metadata of all our data sets that I have that I discussed in this presentation, both open access and controlled access data. And there is no sensitive information, no personal information. You can either go from the top menu bar or access it here, and little tidbits about our estate, the assets, and you can click each single asset here. It will take you directly to that data set page. And you can also click here So let me go here and data catalog. As you see, like the open access, the controlled access, and the open access, I've given you the prerequisites that I spoke about in the presentation. And these are the open access data sets. For example, if you go to GTEx, you will see there is like V7, V8, V9. And if you click each one, this is the GTR package table, GT table. So you will see the delineation of each single metadata field, the file paths, the project info, accession, disease, pipeline, data info, and a lot of others like citation info, and what are the access types, what access type it is, and what you need to, if you need to submit any forms, or who the contact is, things like that. And also a footnote about where it is coming from, the link to directly to the data portal and things like that. Like every form should have, like, if it is available on for the study or for the, what is that, the, in the article, it'll be available there. Again, TCGA, it'll be a little more, a lot more details you can access, and then you can directly click the link if you want to see what is available on the GDC portal, and you can click the link, the DAR right here, and submit or email me. This is the open access. And the controlled access, again, I've put in the requirements, like what you have to submit and what are the mandatory submissions. Again, these are the key, these are the four major controlled access data. But under that, you have like all different data types in them. And as you see, like if you go to TCGA, you will see like all different data categories and data types available under each one. And on the, other than the major federally funded programs, we also have a human protein atlas. You can access that right now. It's getting built. A lot more is getting added to that protein atlas. We have a HTAN, only the open access level 3 and level 4. The connectivity map from Broad Institute, about 50 to 60 terabytes of data is there. And 10x genomics, I have like pretty much like most of the data sets here. But again, it's part of the HCA data set. So you should find most of the 10x under HCA. And HCA is one of the huge data sets like here. As you can see, like there are like hundreds of data sets that have been processed and made available to the public. So it's mostly human cell atlas data. And we have it for both human and mouse. And again, ENCODE. ENCODE, you have the reference assemblies, and the same way for like GenCode, iGenomes, Ensemble, GDC, genome references, BI, like from Broad Institute, the resources from Broad. If you're using the GATK workflow, then the entire resource bundle is here. You don't have to download any of the the genome assemblies or the variant files, like the known variant files. So you can browse through, and this is the forms page, where every single form, there is a link and just a brief statement on what the purpose is, and a couple of notes here. You can submit feedbacks, and if you want a new data set to be added to the data catalog, you can do the new data set suggestion. And all the forms that I walked you through, they are all here. And guides, again, like the forms that I walked you through, the DAR, controlled access, the DDRs, and the renewal closeouts, and the procedures. Like you will see the entire matrix here of each single personnel who's responsible for which particular action, and FAQs. And this, I want to say, like I've put in, like, I think there are close to 80 questions or something, like and I've categorized it. You can, if you don't have questions right now, or if you have later, and if you want to see if it is answered, you might find it here. Just browse through them. And news page, this is where I will be updating like any new data sets or any changes to the current data sets, file paths, and things like that. The glossary, again, an extensive glossary, like alphabetically, as well as on a common, like on the front loading page. And if you want to connect, like you can use all these thing. And the slides are already it'll be, you will see it like this, like the Quarto slides. This is built on Quarto. So the slides I've already uploaded. So it's right here. All I need to do is make it visible to you guys. So you will see this entire presentation set of slides on the website. So anybody, if you missed the presentation, because this presentation will serve as a reference for us, like any new staff or employees who are coming in, if they just want to know like just the gist, what is the data science offer, even if we want to promote our resources, or we are hosting any open houses, new postdocs, grad students, research interns, then we can share this and say like, look, this is what we offer. This is what the resources we have in terms of data. So it's going to be up there on the website. So let me know. And I think it's, I can, if you're interested, I can log into the server and show you, but unfortunately, most of you won't be able to see like or log in and see because of access privileges. But if you do have, all you have to do is like go to the data catalog. And if you go to the CPTAC, or the very first thing you will see is the file path. And remember, the file path is given only for the open access. For controlled access, you will not see file paths. And you can, if you have access to this cluster, and if you don't have one, you will have, but if you haven't activated it or have never logged into it, some of them, like, they just log in only at the time that they need. So please copy paste this link into your, and CD into this directory. As you see, this is the README file path that gives you, lists you information, but not all these information, but at least the information that you will need, where the files are, the key files are. The one thing I want to show is like TCGA. For example, TCGA, there have been requests for R data files. So if you see, like if you want to use Monocle or Swerat or ScanPy, all you have to do is copy paste this results link, and you will see for every single cancer project, for all the 33, you will be seeing the R data file that is summarized, the transcriptome profiling data, the quants data. You should be able to get it right there. And all you can do is like set the path in your R script or in your pipeline, pointing to this directory, and you can just upload the our data object. I think the guides, like if you're unclear about who to contact, or who to how to initiate a request or anything, just go to this the guides part, and you can see like for open access DAR, controlled access, and then that matrix would clearly explain like what does a requester, as you as a requester need to apply, and what you need to submit, and things like that, and who to contact if you need to procure something, things like that. And what happens, like thereupon, once upon submission, what happens, and who are the other people dealing with your request. You can clearly see that. I have listed it there. I hope it's helpful. And if it is not, like always, like if it's like we are working for you guys, for the users. So if something is not user friendly, or if it's, of course, we can't change every single feature, but if something is really, if we find it really that it's going to really help the entire crowd, then we will talk about it in the DNC committee meeting that's coming up next month, and we will definitely implement them. So if anything is like, you don't like it, the way it looks, or the maneuvering, or but that's why I kept the maneuvering, like you have it at the top, and if you're scrolling down, you can access the same links in the middle of the page and then at the bottom of the page. So I kept it in 3 different sections of the landing page, so you can access them. And if the forms, if you need any more specifics about a particular data set, or even about the forms, the presentation of the forms, or if you don't have access to the forms, email me, or email systems, they will forward it to me, and then I can make it available. So any questions? We have a few more minutes. I think most of it, like you will find it on the data catalog, like even if you don't have right now, but most of, like when you, at the time when you come in to access the data sets, or if you're really in need of something, if you go to the FAQs and click access, or what is centralized data, things like that, you should be able to get your questions answered here. And if not, please send us an email or send your question. And if it's relevant, we will add it up here. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. I know it's a pretty dry session, unlike code sharing or generation of code. Yeah, it's pretty dry, I agree. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.